Hello, David. How are you?
Hello, Lee. Doing all right. Thank you.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit late. I was trying to get set up.
hmm
So I believe for book two, really it's up to 23. It's like 13 to 23. At any rate, that's what I had read.
Okay, I'm sorry I wasn't on you. Lee, can you repeat what you just said?
I believe book two is 13 through issue 13 through 23 of Promethea.
So we stopped at 12 last time, so we're starting with 13. Um,
At any rate, that's what I had read up to. That's what I heard what consisted of book two. I've been reading the individual issues, and it doesn't. I guess in the original publication, it doesn't divide itself that way.
okay.
Though
I've got it here, but it does not seem to be cooperating. No, no, it's definitely not cooperating. Because why should life be easy? There we go. There we go. Okay, so starting with issue 13. Okay, so anything in particular you wanted to start off with, Lee?
Well, gosh, it's, I guess my first thought is really that it was just a lot and a lot to take in,
Sure.
philosophically, in terms of the story, the characters and their emotional, spiritual development, the art really, principally like, okay, so I mean, it's been fantastic and imaginative, throughout, but I really feel like it just goes to a whole new level. Like the creativity expressed in this series, like as it goes deeper, it blows my mind. I
Yep.
loved it. If that isn't no clear.
Yep. Uh, it's one of a kind. I think it's probably my favorite Alan Moore work. It's probably one of my favorite comics of all time.
I mean, even just where I'm at with this, I would definitely rank it high up there. Um, as someone who, I think I mentioned last time, I started getting interested in like this history of like, Western esoteric traditions and the tarot and things like that. To hear finally get to because it is kind of, I think you said last time, it's almost like a schoolhouse rock on the occult, some of these issues. To hear like Alan Moore's philosophy of these things, it's interesting. And it's definitely a unique perspective that I have not heard before because he gives a very, very kind of definite meaning and interpretation, for example, of the tarot, where it's almost like telling the story of not just mankind, but of the universe, all the way from the Big Bang to the 1960s. And, that struck me as odd at first, but he makes an argument. And of course, to Alan Moore, that was a very important time period.
Sure.
No.
This is a very, very formidable work. It really is astounding. And
And
yeah,
I don't know if I haven't gotten there yet, but I remember last time you had made the comment that there comes a certain point in Promethea where it's almost like they abandon the narrative in to focus more on the philosophy. And at least where I'm at, I haven't felt as though they've gotten to that point yet because I have seen that in certain series. Like I don't know if you're at all familiar with the it's actually an anime Evangelion. It,
yeah,
that definitely happens towards the end of that series where, they have this narrative and there are these things happening in the world with these characters, but that gets abandoned. And the last few episodes, they really just give a sort of psychoanalysis a psychoanalyst of the main character, and it's really just happened. The story just happens internally. At least where we are at in Promethea, you do see this progression, and especially of Sophie's relationship to Barbara. And I have, at least up to this point in the story, become more attached to these characters who, I felt kind of neutral about at first. So it's been good, to see that growth.
yeah, I would agree. In my estimation, I think Alan Moore manages to keep it consistently entertaining and engaging. That's my opinion. Many others differ on me on that, but I think Alan Moore never loses track that this is intended to be consumed by an audience,
Mhm,
and he does a very good job of balancing the information with the presentation.
mhm,
Again, in my opinion, it's an excellent example of how to do something like this.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I no, I'm really, really happy that you're digging it.
Yeah.
It's really is just an incredible performance. It really is. Yeah, one of my favorites. I would rank it up there.
Something that did kind of stand out to me, as this series has progressed, is really the way the individual Prometheas relate to that image of Promethea, which I find kind of interesting. If you recall, I think it was like around issue 18, Sophie and Barbara, as they're journeying through the afterlife to Barbara's looking for her husband, they meet the father of the original Promethea, and he like extracts Promethea from Sophie Bangs, but he doesn't do so for Barbara. And Barbara's always been, throughout the story, she seems very much her own character, even though she's Promethea. She's a very like unique incarnation of Promethea, and she never like loses that aspect of herself.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think all the different Promethea incarnations are unique to themselves. Yeah, the way they manifest Promethea is very unique.
It is. Because even Sophia, like the moment she loses Promethea, it's like I think she still identifies as Promethea, and then she gets Promethea back. And while for that like issue or two where she doesn't have the ability to like contact Promethea or have that embody that, it's almost like she has something missing about herself. Like she doesn't really see herself as an identity without Promethea anymore. Like she's
Mm.
really deeply ingrained, that sense that I'm Promethea. And that's very different from so Sophie's best friend, I think her name is Stacy.
Yeah,
Right. And when she takes on the when she has the ability to become I forget the name of the Promethea with like the green mohawk,
yeah,
but like while Sophie's away in the afterlife, Stacy's kind of taking her role as Promethea, but in no way does she seem like she, has that kind of identity or self-identification with Promethea. Like it seems more like a possession. There are very distinct personalities within her,
right.
Stacy, and then the Promethea. So it's interesting to see how like each of these individual characters relate to the identity of Promethea.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's exactly the idea, that it's going to be different for every one of them. And I think the idea with Sophie is that, yeah, Sophie really is something particularly special in that she can access Promethea probably in a raw or more pure form.
Mhm.
Yeah, Sophie does uh, get enmeshed with the Promethea spirit
Mhm.
to a far greater degree than probably any other Promethea.
And it really made me want to do more research myself because as I've been learning these things, I really haven't touched like a lot of mystic traditions in history that Alan Moore is pulling a lot from, like the apocryphal books of the Bible, like the Book of Tobit, apparently, where that the one demon that they meet in the place that's kind of like hell comes from. So I became very interested to, maybe even read some of those books of like the Kabbalah. Like I've heard of these things, but I don't really know like at a philosophical level, like their significance.
As we talked last time, yeah, yeah, if you plan on diving into studying the Western esoteric tradition, that is a lifetime pursuit. Uh,
Mhm.
it and many people do devote their entire lives to studying it, and you never reach bottom on that one. But go right ahead. I did my time. I did it a handful of years.
Yeah, and it's even hard for me to articulate, what draws me to these things. It's part of the reason I was so interested in Promethea in the first place, and being able to discuss it with you or in a group, because so for me, I'm a big fan of science and philosophy,
Mhm.
and I don't see how you could, in good faith, completely divorce like the history and the knowledge from these esoteric traditions, from the history of not just philosophy but even from science. A lot of so many practices have their roots or some sort of conceptual heritage from these traditions. I think a very clear case in point would be chemistry to alchemy. Isaac Newton himself, he spent more time studying, what we might call witchcraft or alchemy and different like religious studies. He spent more time doing that than doing calculus. I was shocked to hear these things. Um,
Well, the people you're talking about, yes, they had a strong respect and admiration for the tradition.
and I'm definitely interested to see where the story wraps up at this point because at least by issue 24, we don't really know what's going to happen at the present time or what we might call, the real world or the physical world, like with the painted doll, the Joker-like villain, or we don't know so much about that situation, but insofar as like Sophie's spiritual development goes or her personal interest of, seeing Barbara and Barbara reconnecting with her husband, it feels, or having that spiritual awakening of, what is God? What is truth? It feels like we've come to the end of that story. Like they seem to have had that awakening at this point.
Um, well, yeah, yeah. I mean, the story's not over yet. It's definitely a 32 chapter story in total.
Okay.
So, and we'll get to the rest of it. Yeah, next month, I guess.
It at least feels at this point like it's reached the high point. Like, I don't know if you would agree with that. I hope not. I hope there's a lot more in store. But it seems just hard for me. It's like, okay, how are they going to reach a higher climax than what they've already reached? With Sophia and Barbara actually going to heaven and seeing God or realizing what God is. It's like, how are you going to top that?
Well, it should be an interesting conversation when we get there. Yeah. Uh, oh, I didn't go through these before, but here he goes through, at this point in the back, he goes through the covers.
Are you looking at the comic book?
This one is the
I think I see a different screen.
you are correct. You are correct. Okay. Okay. This one is the Bill Graham rock concert style cover.
Oh, Bill
The
Graham.
1960s. Yeah,
So I saw that and I immediately thought Jimi Hendrix.
that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's right.
That must be Tom Strong.
Yeah. So as we touched on it briefly last time, you're at the point at the beginning of what is book three,
Yeah.
where all the rest of the America's Best Comics characters show up.
So
And
I
if
still
you
have time to do the homework because
and
I
if
was,
you do not know the rest of the America's Best Comics characters, that may find prove to be a bit of a sore point, sticking point for you, because you'll start going, well, who's this? Well, who's this? Well, who is this? And that might be annoying.
so I'm so glad we haven't reached that point yet because I hadn't done the homework yet. I read those issues of Tom Strong and a couple of America's Best, and I was trying to get through Promethea, and I was like, oh, now I'm not going to be able to get the fully appreciate the crossover when it happens. But thankfully, that happens in book three.
In a big way.
Okay, okay. So I still have time to prepare.
And as I said last time, it's as homework goes,
Mhm.
it's not unenjoyable.
Right.
You get to read Alan Moore comic books. It's not that much of a
Nice.
hardship. I mean, sure, the rest of the America's Best Comics line, it's fun, but yeah, it's nothing like Promethea. But it's fun.
And Alan Moore did the like the story, the writing for all of these series.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's amazing. It's amazing to me when I hear about like these legends of comic books, like Jack Kirby or Stan Lee, and it's like they were working on so many just iconic series at the same time. It's like, how do you keep all those narratives and stories in your head? It's a special kind of genius.
Yeah, well, I guess it's all part of the creative process. Sure. I think every creator is kind of different on that one. They do what works best for them. Yeah. Okay, so I scrolled through the entirety of the book, but of course, since I was sharing the wrong screen, you didn't see any of it.
Yeah, and that's my bad because I was kind of jumping all over the place with the narrative.
That's fine. But I'm really glad you're digging it. It's as I said, one of my favorite comics, and and I'll be looking forward to seeing what you have to say about book three, the conclusion.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, I definitely do recommend familiarizing yourself enough with, the rest of the America's Best Comics line. And that would be all of them. That's, well, Tom Strong, top 10. Tomorrow Stories, and I think that's it. Feels like I'm forgetting one, but feels like I'm forgetting one.
You told me at least I won't have to cover League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but I still want to read that at some point. I heard the movie
Sure.
was so-so, but it still looks interesting.
Sure. Um, it's very rare that Alan Moore puts out something that you could say just is a dog.
Okay.
That absolutely has no redeeming value whatsoever. I don't think there's anything Alan Moore has ever done that qualifies. That you can just say, "Oh, that is just garbage. Nobody should ever read this." I don't think there's anything Alan Moore's ever done that qualifies for that.
I was watching on your YouTube channel, you had a like where you actually covered Swamp Thing, and that got me super interested in actually reading those comics as well, because that looked much better than the film I saw when I was a kid, like a child, and I barely remember it, but it just didn't stand out to me. Probably wasn't a faithful adaptation.
I, I don't think there's anything that Alan Moore has ever done that I would say do not read. I
Okay.
mean, I would say read his entire catalog. I
Hmm.
mean, why not? If you're interested in good, solid, well done comics.
Hmm. Do you think that translates? Because at some point in time, like when he first got into the industry, like he started working on like Batman and some other like standard kind of running DC titles, right?
To a limited degree, he did.
Okay. Do you think like his work really stood out in that era? Have you read like
W-
his
Okay, what's throwing me is when you said when he started.
okay.
You said when he started.
I assumed when he got into the industry that was like the first titles he started working on. I could be mistaken.
Well, not exactly, no. I mean, we
Okay.
need to be very precise about the timeline because
Okay.
you said when he started and then you said DC.
Okay.
Because by the time DC hired him and he started doing DC work, he was pretty well established
Oh, I
by
didn't
that
know
point.
that.
Those two things are not synonymous. When
Oh,
he started and DC are not the same thing. He
okay.
was pretty well established by the time he started with DC.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We need to be very clear about the timeline here.
Apologies.
Yeah. Uh, when he started was nothing to do with America. He's
Mm,
from the UK, and when he started, he was working with British publishers.
mm,
What actually happened was, of course, he was producing a lot of work for 2000 AD, and there was that work that caused, I do think it was Len Wein, who was at the time the editor of Swamp Thing, to notice him specifically and pick up the phone and hire him to write Swamp Thing. That would have been, yeah, 84, 83, maybe ish, something like that. But he was very well along in his career by that point.
okay. Okay.
And of course, once he starts on with Swamp Thing, yeah, then he starts writing things here and there. And the thing about it with him in DC was people, note it because it's DC and it's popular. But it really wasn't all that much when you
Mm,
really take in the entirety of his career. It wasn't a lot of stuff. It was maybe, I mean, if you depends on how you're counting.
mm,
You've got the obvious ones, Swamp Thing and Watchmen.
mm.
But after that, a thing here and there, and you just have to point to them one or two. There was what, like maybe three-ish, four Superman stories. There's three or four Batman stories. They're prominent and well known, like Killing Joke and
Yeah,
For the
yeah.
Man Who Has Everything. And there was like a Green Lantern story here and there. There was a Green Arrow story. There was a Vigilante story. Things here and there, a couple of Omega Men things, backup stories.
Mhm.
Okay, but it all amounts to probably less than 20, less than 15-ish. It's not that much. It's not that much when you really think about it. It just takes an oversized reputation in proportion, disproportionate to his entire career.
Mhm.
Just people, think he did a lot of DC work. No, he didn't really. Not really.
So
Just
yeah, I definitely had that conception. I always thought of him as a DC writer.
Yeah, I think that's just a mistake to
Mhm.
think that. It's just a mistake to think that. And when you look at the timeline, what was it? What did it all amount to? Maybe 4.5 years. We're talking
Mhm.
1983 to 19, yeah, maybe 88. Like the last issue of V for Vendetta came out, like I think mid 89. So
Mhm.
what are we talking about? 5.5 years?
It's so
Maybe
such a brief period. Yeah.
5.5 years that maybe he did anything at all for DC Comics. That ain't much for what is a 45 plus year career.
Yeah, no.
It just
It
takes this disproportionate size in the popular conception of fans.
right. Either because of Swamp Thing, Watchmen, their reputation, or just getting to know more through
Yeah.
something he did for DC.
By the time he left DC, it was like 88 when he said he was leaving, and the last issue of V for Vendetta came out in mid 89. So
Mhm.
maybe it was 4 good years.
Mhm.
Maybe 83 to, yeah, 80, 88. 4 good years. It's such a disproportionate reputation
So,
of him in DC Comics.
so you're a fan. You feel the need to emphasize this.
For obvious reasons. I mean, people just love DC Comics and they love Batman and Superman, and people think it was a great combination of the two. But uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, what I'm trying to argue for is, like, let's take a sense of perspective.
Mhm.
Alan Moore's connection to DC Comics was not as prominent in the totality of his career as popular fans'
Mhm.
conception has it be.
I've definitely had that conception, so that helps clear it up.
Yeah.
And it seems like he walked away with not the highest opinion of that company, or at least not wanting to affiliate with them anymore.
Yeah. No, I mean, he started. I mean, it depends on when you say a starting point is. Where do you pinpoint a starting point? But he
Mhm.
started in like the late 70s. Like, I mean, he started doing like underground newspaper comic strips in the late 70s,
Oh
which
wow.
he would write and draw himself.
Oh wow.
And they, local newspapers.
Mhm.
That was where he got his start, and that was the late 70s. That was like 77, 78.
Mhm.
And from there he started working with you know, the other British comics publishers. That would have been the 79, 80, 81. He starts writing for stories for 2000 AD. Mm. He starts writing, getting individual series that he writes.
Hmm. I know he's done quite a few novels. I haven't read any of them, but does he still work on comics as well? Or has he been primarily like a writer, novelist at this point?
It's fair to say he's left comics.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, he's done with comics. But for goodness sake, he sure left a legacy
Yeah.
in the art form. Um, if anybody sat down to total it all up, how many comics has he done? Again, it depends. How do you count? You know, if you aren't counting Watchmen, does that count as one comic or does that count as 12 comics because it was published as 12 comics? How do you count these things? I don't know. You know, that's always the case when you start totaling things up. But probably if you count individual comics, like Watchmen would count as 12 comics, for
Mhm.
example. It's probably over 1,000. It's probably over 1,000 comics, and all worth reading. I mean, if we wanted to, I can tell you the ones that I think were not good Alan Moore comics. But even those, there's still something that's worthwhile. There's still something worth paying attention to. I mean, I would say, yeah, go ahead, read the entire catalog, everything he's ever done. That's what I've done. I think there's two or three or four things that I have not read yet, but they're small things like those early comic strips, which I have not read. I've read some of them, but
I think you would appreciate this view. So, early on, because I've always been a big fan of philosophy, or I have for over a decade now. I've kind of had this ambition that I would always like read like all the classics of Western literature and things like that. But, it's just,
well,
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, like, there's so much just great stuff out there. I don't think anyone really has time to like read all the great works that have been written and fully
that
take the time to appreciate them. So at this point, yes, there are some classics I want to read. Like I'm slowly working my way through all of Shakespeare. Very slowly. That's something like I want to read everything he's ever written. But in general, I'm kind of taking the approach that I will pick up a work that appeals to me. And, I'll cover those things that I think I could derive value from or cover a topic that I'm really interested in. And I don't feel the need to like check off this list of, okay, I'm a philosopher. I need to read Thomas Aquinas and everything Bertrand Russell did, not that, I do want to read some of their works, but
sure, it's always going to be a personal journey. That's right.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it will always be a personal journey, and yeah, it'll be unique to you.
Mhm.
Yeah, in the same way that it is for everyone. Yeah.
That said, I do want to read more by Alan Moore. I might not, cover his entire catalog, but Swamp Thing, V for Vendetta, I already know I want to at least cover those.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. When you said that, it was interesting because I've had that conversation before with other people. That does frequently come up.
Mhm.
There's so much out there, and there's how do you manage to do it? And that conversation has been had. So I
Is that your approach?
well, what I've said to people when this topic comes up, the
Mhm.
way this conversation gets framed is I say it like this. Well, do you remember the Great Books series? I
Oh,
think
do you
there
see
you go.
those? I got
Yeah.
a few, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, how about that? You know, it depends on what you mean by the classics. It depends on how you're
Mm.
defining that. You can say there's, to put a number on it, how many, if you're gonna say it's thousands upon thousands of books, yeah, okay, you can't do that in a lifetime. No, that's very true. But I don't think it is. I don't think it is thousands upon thousands of books. if you were talking about the established, legitimate, acknowledged canon, let's
Mhm.
say, the acknowledged canon
Controversial topic.
of the great Western literature,
Mhm.
that acknowledged canon,
Yes.
I think when you really get down to it, the
Mhm.
great classics, I think it's about 500 books.
Mhm.
It's about 500 books. I think that is doable, actually.
Mhm.
It's just about doable if you set your mind to it, if you really set yourself and really sit down to do it. It's not going to be a quick
Yeah.
project. It'll probably take you over 10 years,
Yeah, that's what I
but you
have on my
could do it.
That's what I have on my Britannica's reading. Like they give a reading list, which makes no sense to me because it's like you read a little bit of Homer once a day and then you read a little bit of Newton, and it's like, over the course of I think it was like 10 years, like you would read all these classic books that they've kind
Mm,
of, drawn out. And I think it's a little arbitrary, and the way they put the order together, it's like, will you be able to understand anything you're reading? You're kind of bouncing around a lot, but you know.
mm,
I feel personally torn on this. I think there's value in reading the classics. For example,
mm.
like I read a little bit of Homer, for example, and just having that kind of information, like of the plays of some of these great poets from Greece. It's like so many thinkers, philosophers, Sigmund Freud, for example. There's so many references to these mythological figures. Having some of that information really helps me connect the dots when I'm just doing general reading. But yeah, I more lean towards wanting to cover things that I find personally relevant or that appeal to
Sure,
me. Because there's so many works that's like, okay, I want to put this on a great reading list. But when I read this work, and Promethea is probably an example where it's like, this is meaningful to me, and this is something
mm,
that I find very applicable to things I'm interested in.
sure. Yeah.
So it's not all or nothing. Reading the classics and reading uniquely what appeals to you. There's a gray area somewhere in there.
Yeah. Yeah. As I said, it's going to be a unique journey that's unique
Mm,
to you, and you make up the rules of what's best for you to
mm,
read. Yeah. I mean, and all the things about, the established canon, whether we're talking about literature or film or even
mm.
comics, I mean, just because lots of people like something doesn't mean you'll like it,
True.
and vice versa. Uh,
I do think there's a safe bet that if something's a classic, there's a good reason it's a classic.
yeah.
There's probably something you could get out of it.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's worth paying attention to and deciding for yourself. You may
Mhm,
decide, well, everybody else loves this, and I
mhm.
didn't think much of it. I mean, we've all got that, right? We've all got movies that everybody thinks is great, and we
Yeah,
don't.
trying to think of some examples.
I've got a list of mine. Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
we all make our own. We put our own canon together.
I like that. I like that. I know at least when I was reading Promethea, because there's a section when Sophie and Barbara travel to the afterlife that they meet like a lot of real people and historical figures, and
Mm.
like Aleister Crowley. Like I've heard the name. Didn't Ozzy Osbourne like write a song about him? Did he?
So
I, I
you're
could I could be mistaken. I've heard the name before, and I was not familiar with his work. Apparently, big occultist, philosopher, influential thinker. So I kind of last night I kind of went down that rabbit hole a bit. So
really.
the deeper I get into this, the more I want to do all this research that I'm sure Moore himself had done when he was making before he made this piece. So
Yeah, I mean, you are approaching areas that, as I said, can be a lifetime course of study. And people do. People spend their lives studying these areas
Mhm.
without reaching bottom. Yeah, it's impossible to go through it in one lifetime. Hmm. There's a lot there. Yeah, you gotta make choices. You gotta realize, okay, yeah, I don't have an infinite amount of time here.
Right. And I think that's part of the value of pieces like Promethea, which is, I mean, you're getting Alan Moore's, like his takeaway and his philosophy of these
Sure,
things, but you get something that's, you could say loosely comprehensive and in an
sure.
easily digestible format.
I don't think I'll ever come across any approach to this particular material, the material and information that Promethea covers,
Mhm.
presented in a more artful way than Promethea.
Right.
That's just never going to happen. I
I
mean, this is,
definitely haven't seen it as I've been getting into these things.
yeah, this is
I have
the,
some books over here, like talking about the tarot. It's kind of dry, and it's giving a card and giving some history and some context and all the references in the artwork. And in particular, I find the history of the tarot actually very fascinating. But the way that Alan Moore, fleshes it out and gives his interpretation, I think
yeah,
I do find it useful.
sure, sure, sure. Yeah, it really is a good bravura performance as a whole, Promethea. Mm. But yeah, do keep in mind it is Alan Moore's interpretation.
Right, right.
And anyone's interpretation, even Alan Moore's, is just an interpretation.
Mm.
And yeah, there's you never pinpoint this is the right one. There are plenty of people who do, but and we're
Yeah,
not just talking about these subjects, anything at all, whether it's science or Christianity
yeah.
or capitalism.
Mhm.
There's any as soon as somebody starts, and that's what people do, they fall into the temptation of this is the right way to think about this subject. Now you're in trouble. No
I
matter what
love
you're talking about, you're in trouble. As
so
soon as you go,
so
this is the way to think about this. Red
so
flag, danger,
Moore's
danger.
So Moore's telling a story, so I think we can cut him some slack that, the way he's presenting these things, it's woven into a narrative. So it's hard to decipher for, where he's saying, this is the way to interpret, the tarot, for example, versus, well, here's my story and here's how, I use the tarot within this narrative of Promethea. But, even for example, the reading he gives here, it's like he kind of had to very loosely interpret and adjust some things to kind of give the interpretation he was giving,
Right,
within this story.
right. Yeah. No, I would never advise anybody to, I'd say, here, read Promethea, and now that you've read Promethea, believe that this is the correct way to think about all of these subjects.
Yeah,
I would never, ever say that.
right, right.
This is Alan Moore's dish
Yeah,
that he's serving you, and take it on board. But
yeah.
a good friend of mine started his own religion, and his religion only has one rule.
Okay.
His rule is belief itself is the only sin.
Belief in,
Belief itself is the only sin.
okay. Interesting, interesting. Well, if he's published any work on his worldview, I'll check it out. if you send it to me.
Are you serious about that?
Oh, 100%.
You're
100%.
serious about that.
I'm 100% serious.
You're not on Facebook, right?
No, but I got some contacts. I'll message you over Meetup, or if you message me. Um, I think I pinged you at some point. No. Legitimately, I find the study of these things fascinating. So it's all this the Carl Jung. I got a couple books by Jung. It has made me, well, initially very interested in the psychological interpretations of religious beliefs, but the further I've gone down this rabbit hole, the more I've just, found a lot of pleasure and joy in studying the subject. People, their beliefs, their worldviews, what matters to them. Could anything be more fascinating?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I wasn't paying attention.
Uh, I don't even remember at this point. I was just saying that I enjoy studying religions. Um,
Sure. Sure. Well, as I said, I spent a lot of years, yeah, paying attention. I could even show you my library.
you have a lot of physical comics?
Not that much these days. I actually don't. I mean, the collection that I had, I got rid of.
Mhm.
I mean, from my childhood.
Ah,
It's just physical stuff. You just don't
right. Even
get
even
it.
when I cover a book these days, I'll end up most of the time reading something on a PDF. But like, I don't know. I'm addicted to having physical books. Yeah, I think they're beautiful, so I like owning them.
Yeah, it's just the aesthetic pleasure, but at this point, yeah, I don't bother that much with
Every once in a while, when I'm like deeply studying something, like when I'm covering a book by Freud, for example, sometimes I do like switching between formats just to kind of keep my mind active. Like if I'm staring at a screen for too long, I start to, well, one, get distracted by all the apps inherent in, computers, but two, just having something to switch between helps keep me fresh. I like taking notes. I like being able to write on the page.
sure, yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna share my screen, but
No, please
there
message.
is a link, and the way to organize it is by tags. If you click on tags, that's the best way of organizing everything.
I told a friend of mine I was reading this book, Promethea, and I shared a screenshot from one of I forget which issue this was in particular, but it was when Barbara, her and Sophie are journeying, and Barbara meets the younger version of herself. And there's this quote. Where she's talking about the demon that they meet in like the hell place, and Barbara, like the younger version of her, she just walks up to the demon and like starts, nudging his head, kind of brushing his hair a little bit and playing around with him. And they're like, "Oh, why are you on such good terms with this demon, this devil?" And she says, "Hey, let me tell you something. All of us, we can only see in others what we recognize in ourselves. Now,
Right.
I'm an angel. We look at life and that's all we see, angels." And I just like I sent that to all my friends. I was just like, I love that.
Right. That's yeah, there's so much richness here
Yeah.
in this comic. Absolutely. And I'm glad you've given me the opportunity to go through it again because,
When was the
I-
last
you
time you
know,
read this?
well, I first read it when it first came out, of course.
Oh, as the issues were being published.
That's correct. Well, of course I did. Why wouldn't I? Would I have said, "Oh no, I'm going to skip this one"?
Or I'm gonna wait till they're still. It's I do this quite a bit. I'll wait till something's over, then I'll pick it up.
No.
And when was that? It was this like early 2000s?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you sent it. Okay, now I see
So
the
there
link.
is a link to Heron. His name is Heron Stone. Uh, the first the first one at the top is the Five Stupidities of English. That's the one he usually says, if you're at all interested in me and what I'm about and what I do and what I think about and what I'm all about, that would be step number one. Listen to that audio. It's only like, I think, 45 minutes,
What's
but
this
that would be
first
step
link?
one is listen to that audio. That's the beginning.
Okay, the first link is like a comic book site, but the second that's your friend. That's the looks like some sort of decrees, like his thoughts, personal website. Okay. Yeah, I'll check it out. That looks interesting.
Yeah, he's actually a friend of mine, and the thing about him is, he has identified some interesting aspects of life in a way that I don't think anybody else quite has. And to that degree, he's worth paying attention to.
Okay. I see I assume those are kanji, like the ideographic characters, and I automatically assume, there's going to be a flavor of Taoism or some sort of Eastern philosophy to this. I don't know if that's
You're
fair.
talking about the symbol, his symbol.
Yeah, yeah, I'm talking about the symbols.
That's the Chinese symbol for Gen, which is language, and the
Okay.
Chinese symbol for Do, which is the way, Gendo, the way of language.
Interesting. Interesting. Premature to draw Wittgenstein parallels.
Oh,
And I'm talking late
Heron,
Wittgenstein, not early.
Heron, yeah, if you boil it down, yeah, what Heron is dealing with is language. He's pursuing language and how language works. But he's not a standard academic linguist. He's not doing that particular game. He's playing a different game completely.
Okay,
But it
okay.
is, his the way he approaches language is unique. Like we were talking about when we were talking about, okay, Alan, you read Promethea, and Alan Moore gives you in Promethea, he'll give you an interpretation of the tarot deck.
Yeah.
And the danger is because he did it so beautifully and he did it so artfully and he did it
Mhm.
so majestically
Mhm.
that you have a tendency to say, "Oh my God, this is the interpretation of the tarot deck." And for the rest of your life, you believe there's one interpretation of tarot and it's Alan Moore's and this is the one right. So what Heron says is in the name of the podcast is the Five Stupidities of English. One of those five stupidities is actually, he says, one of the most pernicious problems with English is the word the.
Mm.
The word the. It's like, okay, if you say to your child, Go run under the table. Now, if there's only one table in the room, it's you can tell by context what you're talking about, the
Yeah.
table. But the problem with saying the table,
Mm.
according to Heron, I'm not saying this myself. I'm just telling you what Heron will tell you if you ever have a conversation with him, is the table. The table. So there's only one table in existence. In the entire universe of existence, there's only one table. No, that's not true. There's many tables. That is not the table. That is a table. See, the problem is that's not the way English works. We say the table, and by context, we understand. But the problem is that gives us a skewed perception of reality, according to this is what Heron tells us.
Mm.
By saying the table, you're implicitly, subconsciously implying that's the only one table and that exists
Mm.
in the cosmos, in reality. And that's not true. That's not the case. It's more accurate to say a table.
Mm.
So if you say this is an interpretation of tarot, that's an accurate statement. But if and it's embedded, according to Heron, Heron says this,
Yeah.
it's embedded in the structure of English to talk like that, the interpretation of tarot. Now you're in trouble
Mm.
because there is no the interpretation. There are only interpretations. This one is an interpret. This is another. This is another. This is another. But by
Yeah.
saying the interpretation of the Bible, the interpretation of the relativity theory of relativity, that
Mm.
there's only one, and that will never be the case, and that will only lead to danger in your thinking because you now become a fundamentalist and say that my way is the right way and all other ways are wrong. And that really is the history of humankind because that's pretty much what humans have always done. We have the right way of thinking about God or religion or family or science or capitalism or Marxism, and all other ways are
Yeah.
incorrect. And you better be on board with this one, the interpretation. And if you're not, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
history of mankind. And
And you give
part of the
some,
problem is language, the way the English language is structured.
yeah. So your friend, you said he's not necessarily working within like the academic philosophical tradition of like philosophers of language. He's not necessarily working within that tradition, but he definitely has some unique and compelling ideas. Uh, and those are some interesting examples you give, and it'd be interesting to dive deeper into, when we use words like the, because it seems a little bit arbitrary, but at least implicitly, like the suggestion seems to be that even in an obvious example, like when you say the table, well, even a young child could say like, oh, there are other tables in existence, but the assumption is like, you know, there is a particular table which you must regard as most important or to be spoken about when I say table.
Once again, Lee, I was multitasking, so
Oh,
was
no
not
worries.
paying attention to anything you were saying. I do not multitask. I can do one thing, and that's all. So I
I
didn't hear a
can.
word you said.
Well, I was, well, at first I was
Say it again.
asking.
Now I am paying attention.
Okay, yes. At first, I was asking about like, was your friend because like I had read a little bit of Wittgenstein, and I'm interested in like academic, philosophy of linguistics. Do you see your friend as like working within that tradition at all?
He has done his homework.
Okay,
He knows the landscape. He knows the background. He knows
okay,
he knows what has been done in the field of linguistics and language. He has very much done his homework.
okay,
I mean,
interesting.
he knows Wittgenstein. Yeah.
Okay, great.
He's got a bibliography that he has. Maybe I can find it if you're interested. Maybe that's a maybe. Let me see. But no, he's very familiar with the history of linguistics. Very, very familiar.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
Um,
check it out.
I don't know.
It'd be at least
Busy.
inspiration for me to do something similar if I can ever form something coherent out of all this self-teaching I'm doing. And that's a big if.
Imaginary landscapes, phonographics, Gendo, the bibliography. Cut. Here is my friend Heron's bibliography.
Okay, very nice. I on the
No,
same, no, it's a different side. Okay. Oh, nice. Oh, okay, okay. So he's got a reference list of I assume these are suggested readings. Very nice. Ray Kurzweil, I've actually at work at my job, I actually used to host a book club and we read some Ray Kurzweil. Oh, so that's cool. I think he's still alive. I hope so. I see Daniel Dennett, Consciousness Explained. I think I have that somewhere. Marvin Minsky, of course. Yeah, I've read a lot by Marvin Minsky. Yeah, no, this is a great list. Okay, interesting. We might be working from a similar intellectual traditions. A lot of this I actually have never heard of. Angel's Fear toward an epistemology of the sacred. That appeals to me. Yeah. At any rate, I'm really loving Promethea,
hmm,
principally just as a story, as an aesthetic experience. I enjoy the comic and
sure.
yes, the one thing that was a bit of a turnoff at first was, there is a lot of explicit, elements to this story, but I do think that that is, that's sincere and that's true to the traditions of esoteric practices and witchcraft. Talking about, talks of sexual dynamics and comparing that to, to nature, to magic, to the spiritual realm. That is all through the history of Western esoteric tradition. So I think that is true to form, uh, and is represented well in this story. It's premature for me to, give any sort of philosophical takeaway. And the more I read this, the more I'm interested in learning about everything that Moore is drawing from and pulling from and referencing. But I'm looking
Hmm.
forward to completing the series. And
Sure, sure, sure.
hey, you left me off on a cliffhanger last time because I had asked. I know this story there was planned to be a longer version of this story. I don't know how much more had in mind, but I know it was kind of cut short. So I'm interested to see, where we get left off at, and if the story really wraps up, or if I'm going to be left wanting more.
Yes, you did say that last month,
Yeah.
and I'll just repeat what I said. Get to the end of the 32 issues,
Okay.
and then we'll have a conversation about it.
Okay. Okay. And I guess that's probably when you'll finally give me your takeaway of these things, if you have one, if you have a single one.
Mm. Yeah, when people talk about Alan Moore and all the great comics that Alan Moore did,
Hmm.
this one, Promethea, rarely gets mentioned. Rarely comes up.
Yeah.
Rarely. I think it qualifies as my favorite thing he's ever done for me.
Hmm.
But I don't think many people would say that.
Right. Well, I mean, I've read I'm reading this so far, and I have read Watchmen in the past, and it's really like apples to oranges trying to compare those two. This is definitely, I would say, a more serious and, well, maybe serious isn't the right word, but a more raw piece, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or maybe it's apples to oranges. It's tackling different subjects.
Yeah, he's a formidable talent. It's not like he's the greatest writer of all time. I don't know who would qualify for that,
Uh,
but yeah, what he can do is just very, very impressive.
or even J.H. Williams. I mean, his art is incredible on
Yes.
these. I don't know what else he has worked on in comic books. I'd be interested to see. They probably I don't know if any other work he did allowed him to, really explore as much as what he's, doing in this work. But
He's had a bit of a career. Yeah. I mean, I've paid attention here and there to the other things that he's done besides Promethea, but he certainly does have a body of work now. Um, it's very hard for me to like read a comic just entirely because of the artist.
Mhm.
If it's, writing that I just have no interest in, you know, it's rare.
Mhm.
But, I mean, yeah, J.H. Williams does have a long career working on other comics. And yeah, I've looked at some of it.
It'd be interesting to know what maybe some of his motivations were, or some of his inspirations were, because like you said last meeting, it's like he has such a unique art style. It's like,
Mhm.
how do you connect this to anything else?
Right. Oh yeah, he's done well, I mean, you go through his bibliography. He's done stuff here and there, but he has his own series that he co-created and conceptualized and co-wrote.
What's it
What was it?
called?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's called Other Realm. No, that's not it. But and I have read that.
Starman, a lot of DC stuff. Jonah Hex, Sandman. Oh, okay, wow.
Echolands.
Echolands, Image Comics.
I have read that. Yeah. I've read Echolands, yeah.
Any good?
Well, isn't that an interesting question, Lee?
I forgot
It, it
Kierkegaard quote.
it's J.H. Williams' artwork. I would say,
Okay. The art is incredible. I will say that. Just looking at these images on Google.
yeah, for Echolands, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I would say If you're a fan of J.H. Williams' artwork, Echolands delivers. It is every bit as good as everything he did here in Promethea. And
Mhm.
frankly, a lot you can say that about pretty much anything he's done,
Mhm.
at least after Promethea. Just looking at all the other comics that he's done after Promethea, yeah, he doesn't phone anything in. He will
Mhm.
give you as artwork as good as Promethea every time he steps up to the plate.
He delivers.
Yeah. Yeah. But as I say, I don't choose to read a comic based on the artwork. As good as he is, and he is good. He's one of the best out there at the moment. He's
That
really good.
It's interesting for me to hear you say that, because I know you read a lot of classic comics on your meetup, like some
Yeah.
of the old Donald. Is it Donald Duck? Like all those old series, and I feel like if I was to read those things, my primary enjoyment would be not just getting reading something old because I find that inherently interesting, reading something that was influential, but just getting like the aesthetics of like old style comics. But you're saying, for you, the story needs to be compelling, fundamentally.
Well, it's not trying to think of an analogy. It's maybe something like, you know, reading novels and reading poetry or reading a
Mhm.
play. It's words on the page, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's printed ink on paper, but that doesn't mean it's the same thing. You got to approach it differently. You got to approach a poem differently than a short story or a novel. They're not accomplishing the same thing. Yeah, so different comics, you're gonna have to use different measuring sticks. If you apply only, I mean, this comes back to something we've been talking about before. If you apply one measuring stick to everything, yeah, you're gonna be in trouble in very short order. Context is everything.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to finishing the series and eventually getting to something else by Alan Moore. But right now, I'm focused on Prometheus. So I've
Yeah.
really appreciated you hosting these. This has been great.
Um, Promethea is definitely, yeah. Hey, the meeting. Wait, that's right. It is, right? Isn't it? Oh no, October.
For the part three, book three, I think I registered. I now need to check.
October 8th at 5:30.
Okay, okay.
October 8th at 5:30. That will be King County, Washington. Now they are doing Promethea because of me. It's my suggestion.
Okay.
So
Are we going to cover the like the entirety of the series?
that's actually a good question. I think it's going to be book one only.
Okay.
But the other thing I wanted to mention is you are a member of two of my groups, and that's unnecessary. You don't need to be a member of two of my groups because they're both the same.
Okay.
Uh,
Which groups do you have? I think I might have made an accident. You had like the comics, animation, and philosophy. Oh, comics, animation, etc. meetups. Okay, so I see you have two different meetups. I confused one for the.
it's unnecessary. You don't have to be a member of two of my meetings.
No, I see that. I think I signed up for the one, and then I got the meetup for the other, and I saw that I didn't register, and so I signed up. So. No, I didn't realize you had two different. I know you did. You were publishing some of these on Portland Philosophy, and then you had the comics meetup, but I didn't realize you had two different comics meetups.
10.
10, what?
I have 10
What?
groups.
What?
One is enough.
I'm sure there's some logistical reasoning behind that.
I have 3 in the Pacific time zone. I have 1 in the Mountain time zone. I have 2 in the Central time zone, and the rest of the 4 are in the Eastern time zone.
Okay, interesting. I have such
Yeah.
I I have the one meetup for the cognitive science, and half the time I forget to, do updates on that page, but I'm impressed. Uh, no, no, you publish a lot of interesting stuff. I remember I'd registered for you were doing like some comic book which was kind of like a history of like Jewish thought. It was called like Einstein, Marx, and Freud.
That's still coming up.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
it's
it's
coming. Yeah, I
scheduled.
registered for that. That looked interesting, but and I'm
It's
sorry
still.
about. I think it was yesterday. I'd registered. You were doing a Fire and Ice for like a movie night, and I'm sorry, I kind of flaked out on that. But I recently did a deep dive like a year ago into like I didn't watch everything by him, but I watched the bulk of films by Rolf Bakshi, and so I'm a big fan. Needless to say, big fan.
Bakshi was an interesting figure in the
Yeah.
history of animation. Yeah, certainly was interesting. Yeah, we on the movie nights we've done quite a fair amount of Bakshi's uh, films.
American
Certainly is an
Pop
interesting
is
figure.
my favorite by him, all-time favorite. But I mean, it's hard to choose.
Yeah. No, the Marx, Freud, and Einstein will be in March. It's on the schedule for March. I
Mhm.
may postpone it again, but I hope we'll be able to get to it.
Okay. Is there a
Thank
meetup you would suggest I stick to?
Uh, Occasionally somebody asks that now and again. Yeah, the trick is you got to pick something that's far enough into the future that you give yourself time to read it.
Right.
That's always going to have to be the trick. Okay, but occasionally somebody will ask that. Well, let's see. Let's see what's on the
It's
schedule.
more or less you're covering the same readings in all the different groups. It's not like, okay, I'm gonna get like, I don't know, more mainstream comics in one and more indie comics in another or something like that.
I'm sorry, Lee. I was paying attention, but I didn't follow that. Can you
No, I
repeat
was
that
saying
a
like
different way?
you're doing the same comic books in each meetup. It's not like you have different meetups for different genres or anything like that.
I have the same comic for well, the comic. I'll approach it the way my mind is approaching it. The comic that we cover in every meeting is going to be that comic. What else are you asking?
No, no, I was asking like because you had the different meetups. I was just asking if there was like a different genre you were covering. And
Meetup.com, that's what you're asking. Okay.
yes.
No, the 10 meetups that I own, I do not differentiate in any way
Okay.
other than time
Okay.
zone. They are identical. That's
Okay.
why
That's
you
what I
don't
was
need to
asking.
join more than one
Yeah.
because they're all exactly the same thing. There's no differentiation between them, none
Okay.
whatsoever.
Okay.
That's why you only need one. It has happened that people discover me and they join all 10 of them. And
Oh,
if I
really?
ever meet them, which sometimes I don't, I say, you do not need to do that. You're not going to get different meetings because you
Hmm.
do that. You're just going to get multiple iterations of the same meetings. That's the
Right.
only thing that's going to happen. They are not differentiated in any way. No,
Just
all identical.
extra notifications from Meetup in my email. So good to know.
That's the only thing that happens. You
Yeah.
just get additional email notifications of the same meetings.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, okay. There's a comic that we're meeting and talking about on October the 3rd called The Reddest Rose, which is very worthwhile, but that's about, yeah, okay, 19-ish days to read that one, in addition to you're already reading Promethea. So that may be too soon that you won't have time to read it, but it's worthwhile.
Reddest Rose.
It's on October the 3rd, the 5:45 meeting, but I would recommend that if you've got the time for it, but you may not.
So
It
you
may be
think it
too
will be
short.
up my alley? It depends entirely on length. It really okay. I see 184 pages. That sound about right?
Yeah, you may not have enough time. But so the trick is always choose something that far enough into the future to give yourself time to read it.
Yeah.
Uh, so
I've
what
got a couple friends
like
who recently recommended some rather long books to me. I'm a little backlogged at the moment. Blindside.
yeah,
You heard
yeah,
of the
yeah.
sci-fi Blindside?
Which book particularly?
It's not a comic. It's a sci-fi novel. Blindside.
Doesn't sound familiar now.
Does it sound familiar? It's a hard sci-fi novel. Has a vampire, evidently, but trying to catch up
Who's the
through.
author?
That is a good. I think it was Watts. Okay, let me look it up real quick.
Doesn't
Blindside,
sound familiar at all.
Peter Watts. Make sure I'm remembering. Yeah, Peter Watts.
No, don't know.
Well, at any rate, it looked interesting. They were suggesting it to me, but there's a temptation when you start getting into Meetup. You see so many people covering books and works, you'd love to cover or discuss at some point, and
Yeah,
you can easily sign up for more than you can actually accomplish. And
yeah,
I never want to do that to someone because at least I a couple times have hosted a meetup to like cover reading and nobody showed up. So I don't want to do that to somebody else.
yeah.
But no, no, I'll at least look into it. So you recommend it for me. You think it'd be something that would appeal to my interest.
That one specifically, you have 19 days to read it in addition to
Okay.
everything else you're doing.
Okay.
So
Is
that
that the
may
right
not be possible.
is that the right series that I put in the chat? I don't know if that's the
No,
right.
you got it. You got it.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that's
it.
it. That's it. Yeah.
Okay,
But
okay. I'll at least look at a summary. If I don't have time to cover it for the meetup, I can come back to it at some point. If you
yeah.
recommend it, I'll put it. I have like a Google Doc where I put like all these films and books and the things I hope to get to eventually.
Okay. In December, there's a group doing Day Tripper, which is an interesting comic. It's worth
Okay.
having a conversation about.
I imagine it's based on the takes inspiration the name from the Beatles song.
Yeah. I mean, it's catch as catch can, and I mean, most comics are not as intellectually in depth as Promethea. I guess it depends on what it is you're looking for. As I said,
That's a very high bar. That I will say that's a very high bar.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even for more, I feel, well, maybe that's not fair. I haven't read enough of more to comment. Would you say that?
Say
I
what?
know at least going in, the way he thought about this novel is it is a philosophy lecture at its core.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm, yeah, quite. I mean, the vast majority of comics, it's like anything. It's like television. It's like movies. It's like,
mhm.
most books for that matter. I mean, most movies, most television is not going to be a huge intellectual, in depth, exploration of heavy themes. That's just not the culture we live in. So
Right.
yeah, but that's the case with most comics. Um,
Very simplistic art style. This is interesting. Total contrast from the cover of the book on the reddest rose.
there's a group doing Through the Bows, which I know little about, but looks interesting enough. But again, it's just, I mean, I'm not expecting intellectual depth. It's just entertainment, which most, I'd say if you're looking through the events that I post on my meetup,
Hmm.
yeah, I would say 99% of them are just entertainment. That's
Hmm.
all they are. They're just comics that exist for the purposes of entertainment. Probably 99% of those comics are, and a lot of them are good. A lot of them are worth paying attention to. A lot of them are worth reading,
Yeah.
but they're just entertainment. That's all. Not much
Yeah, I
more.
mean, I enjoy reading graphic novels, so that isn't, that's not a non-starter for me. And
Yeah.
even my interest in literature and philosophy in general, it's like, I work as a programmer. I'm not necessarily
Yeah.
benefiting, from reading Shakespeare, for example, in some like sort of practical, pragmatic way. But I enjoy these things, and that's the inherent motivation, the experience of
That
just.
should be. Yeah. I mean, that's what comics when comics are good are well done, yeah. They are every bit as well done as any other art form. But that covers a lot of ground. I mean, sometimes it is just about enjoyment. Sometimes it is just about appreciating the craft, and sometimes it's about the story. Sometimes it's about the narrative.
Yeah.
But that's the case for any art form. I mean, different works, different individual pieces have different motivations.
Yeah, and I think even a very simplistic story that isn't, deep or intellectual on the surface can provide food for thought, or, if it
Yeah,
doesn't speak to the intellect, speak to the soul, which is at least just as important.
yeah, yeah. That's a good way of approaching it. In November, there's
Do you have any interest in manga at all?
a little.
So I haven't read much by him, but I've become interested in Junji Ito. I imagine you've probably heard of him,
Yes.
like his series Uzumaki. That'd be something if you ever cover that, I'd love to join for that.
There have been many groups that have done Uzumaki over the
I
years,
imagine, yeah.
and I think there probably will be many more in the future.
Okay.
Usually around Halloween,
I,
usually in October.
that's on my list at any rate. That's on my list. It's good to get, it's the perfect time of year to cover something that's kind of horror inspired. I recently I did an in-person meetup. We covered Frankenstein, and that was great. I love that novel. It's my first time reading that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And it's crazy it took me so long because some of the first books I ever read that really just inspired my love for reading was Dracula,
Yeah.
Carmilla. I love these stories, and so to finally get around to it, and it's a really deep piece. Yeah, and not at all, and I've heard it was different from the film interpretations, like the 1931, but I was not at all prepared for the contrast between Mary Shelley's piece and just what you learn about Frankenstein, or the concept you get from cultural osmosis, the creature, for example. So such an intelligent,
Yeah.
sophisticated character, and they turn him into uh
Yeah. Right. Right.
strings
Yeah.
in the
Right.
head and everything, green skin, everything else.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
Have you ever read it?
No, actually, I haven't.
Oh no, I recommend it. Definitely recommend.
Sure. 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 Yeah, next month there is a group doing, well, it's on the 29th. It's called Universal Monsters Dracula, which I do plan to read. You might be interested in going to that one.
Okay,
That'll
when
give
is
you enough
that?
time to read that particular one. That might be one for you to.
Okay. Have you already sent out the notification?
October,
I
if you look on the calendar, October 29th. It's called Universal Monsters Dracula. And
have like 100 tabs. I'm sorry.
and on my I haven't read it yet, but my understanding is it is covering the authentic Bram Stoker novel.
Oh, really?
That's my understanding. I haven't gotten to it yet, but the artist on this is Ashley Wood, who I rank very highly as an artist.
Yeah, I see the Redis rose.
If you're looking at the calendar, are
This
you
is an
looking through the
American.
scroll list?
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
hit calendar. Hit calendar. It's
Oh,
so much easier.
that is a good
Don't
idea.
scroll. Why? Why? Why do you do that to yourself? Hit
I like the
calendar.
pictures. I like the pictures, man. Um, Redis rose. Oh, you're doing V for Vendetta. Universal Monsters. Okay. Oh, and Hellboy on the same day. I don't know how you do it all. Oh, okay. That art looks great. Actually looks really interesting. Okay, we'll see. We'll see. Thanks for keeping me in mind.
Okay.
My goodness. If I had to choose right now, I'd go with the Redis Rose, but it looks like I'd be in a time crunch. Uh, yeah, 14th. And let me make sure I'm signed up for Promethea. Yeah, I'm already signed up for Promethea, so looking forward to completing that. I'll make sure I cover a little bit of Tom Strong and the other America's Best Comics on.
Okay, yeah, I think it really is just about three comics. So we're talking about Tomorrow's Stories, Tom Strong, top 10. Yeah, I think
Make a note
that's
before I forget.
really it. I don't think there's anything else that I'm missing, but
Tomorrow's Stories.
yes, Tomorrow's Stories, Tom Strong, and top 10. But even top 10, you just get the basic idea. You don't even need any more than that. But I would definitely concentrate on Tom Strong and Tomorrow's Stories. And as I said, you get to read fun adventure comics by Alan Moore. That's not much of a
And then
grind.
it won't derail from my experience of Promethea by me sitting there going like, what? What's going on?
I think it enhances when you hit the point that I'm talking about, which you're just about to, from
Okay.
where you are right now. You're just about to hit, but when you hit that point, I just don't want people to get confused about who's this? Who's this? Did we ever meet where did these people come? Yeah, I don't want that to happen, and I can see that that might be a problem.
Okay.
But it does help a little bit to know a little bit about who they are and where they came from and what they're about. Just a little bit. You should have a basic understanding of who everybody is.
And it will,
Just yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
serve Moore's purpose of getting me to read more good comics by him. So mission
Right.
accomplished. I'm sure I'll enjoy it. So
Right.
well, at any rate, I really enjoyed it, David. Thank you.
Okay. Let me say if you have any trouble at all, like signing in or anything at all, just shoot me a message and I'll do what I
Okay.
can to help you.
Yeah. In particular, what are you talking about the meetup?
Yeah, like if, for example, you've signed up for, let's say, for example, the Promethea meeting that's going to be happening in October.
Okay,
on the
because that's not
9th.
going to be on your normal meetup, is it?
That's not my normal meetup. That's
Okay,
correct. So if by chance, and I'm not saying this will happen, but if it does, by chance, you sign up and then the day and the hour arrive and you click on the link and realize, oh no, I was supposed to do this about 2 days ago. Now I don't have the Zoom link
okay,
because I should have signed up for that and I neglected to do that. Now I don't have the Zoom link and now I can't attend. Now, if that by chance does happen to happen,
yeah,
shoot me a message and I'll see what I can do for you
okay.
right then at that time.
On
But don't
meetup,
let
right?
that happen.
Yeah, so
Don't
thanks
let
for
that
the heads
happen.
up. Thanks for the heads up. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that now. It sounds like I need to do some pre-registration.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you.
The best thing to do is to, yeah, re-register in advance so that doesn't happen. But I'm
Yeah,
saying if it does ever does, I'll see if I can
yeah.
help you out. But
Appreciate it. But so actually, so it sounds like this is going to be on probably more than likely book one of Promethea with a di
yeah,
slightly different group. Okay, so we'll see. I think I remember the gist of the first part of the novel, but I might want to do a brief recap for the meeting. I won't want to drop any spoilers, that's for sure.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, okay,
And our that'll be that'll be King County, Washington. Our meeting will be as usual, third Monday of October, which is the 20th, which isn't on the calendar yet, but it will be.
okay. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to
So
it.
that'll be the 20th of October. Yeah. Third Monday, as usual.
Thank you so much, David. Had a good time. Good
Sure,
night.
sure, Lee.
Bye.
Talk to you then.